Okay, so good morning. Today we will start the lecture number 5. Okay, so and this is again going to be on crystallography. So what we will talk about in this is the distinction between primitive and non-primitive lattices. Now this understanding is important if you want to understand the crystallography to a reasonable level. So let me just give you a recap of lecture 4. In the previous lecture we learnt about what is a lattice. So lattice is nothing but a 3D arrangement of points, regular arrangement of points in space, with the condition that each point must have identical neighborhood. So this is point lattice. Okay, as long as you have point, it's point lattice. And if you put some object such as atoms to it, what it makes is a crystal lattice. And so basically a lattice is a point lattice is 3D arrangement of points in space, a crystal lattice is 3D arrangement of periodic arrangement of atoms in space. Okay. So instead of points you have atoms or molecules or group of atoms. And second thing that we considered was a lattice can be represented by vectors such as, so you can have this Cartesian vectors. So let us say this is x, this is y, this is z. So you can have a lattice which is represented in this fashion. Okay. So here I can have a vector such as r, and this r is nothing but n1 a1 plus n2 a2 plus n3 a3. So n1, n2, n3 are integers which determine the number of translational steps that you take along a1, a2 and a3 axes. So in this case, for example, this is, let us say, a1, this is a2 and this is a3. So this vector r will be 1 of a1 plus 1 of a2 plus 1 of a3. Okay. So this is what this vector will be. So and lattice parameters of this can be determined as lattice parameters are a, b, c, alpha, beta, gamma. A, b, c are the lengths or unit cell lattice translations, and alpha, beta, gamma are the angles. Now let me now move to the next topic of this series, which is called as primitive versus non-primitive lattice. So earlier we were talking about point lattice. Now I said object. Okay, earlier I was saying object or atom. In the technical language we call it as a motif. Okay, motif or basis. Okay. So when you combine these two aspects, what you get is a crystal lattice. So what is this motif? So we define this motif as motif slash basis. Now this is loosely used in many books and notes. So either you can say motif or basis. So this is an atom or a group of atoms and so on and so forth. So now let me just give you a simple example. So you had a periodic lattice like this. Okay. So translations are not exactly equal, but I hope you understand what I mean here. So now let me replace each of these points by this, let us say, atom A. So this becomes a periodic lattice of A. All right. Now for the sake of simplicity we have taken A as a circular or a spherical atom in 3D. Okay. Now it does not need to be like this. For the sake of change or modification, I can convert this A as it could be a molecule. So, for example, if it was a molecule like this, so this is a B atom which is attached to A, all right. So, this is now, so this is B atom which is the smaller one. So, now in this case this whole thing, it is a molecule, it is not an atom. I can give you now, so now this is put on same point, you can make it in a different manner. Now let me just draw the point letters again. Now what I do here is I put one atom here, another atom here, another atom here and another atom here, okay. And then I put one atom here, here, one atom here, and so on and so forth. And I choose the second atom as, which is A, so in this case what is the first of all repeatable unit cell? Is the repeatable unit cell, so in the let me just go to previous case. In the previous case the repeatable unit cell is still this one, right, or you can have this another parallelogram, let us say this one, but for the sake of simplest and most symmetric we take the square one or rectangular one, okay. So these are the two smallest unit cells, two examples of smallest unit cells. In this case, what is the scenario now? Is the smallest unit cell same as before, this one, or is it this one? No, it is not. You can see that it violates the definition of lattice. Each lattice point does not have same neighborhood. So the smallest lattice in this case happens to be this one. Let me draw with a different color. This one or that one. So this is now, what is the motif in this case? What is the basis in this case? The basis is this or that? Basis is combined, right. So basically the basis is these two atoms put together. The unit cell has gotten bigger than what we have been drawing so far. You can make it smaller and it will remain the same size, but basically you can now construct this as, let us say this is the smaller unit cell. It is as if you have group of atoms positioned. So if you look at this unit cell, it is like a dumbbell, right. You can move the corner of the unit cell anywhere you want, right. The corner can be here, the corner can be here, the corner can be here, all right. Corner can be anywhere. So what it will look like is basically you have a dumbbell shaped sort of representation. One was red. So let us say this is my red atom, and this is my purple atom somewhere here. So, this is a group of atom or a molecule. This is a simple example of AB kind of molecule. You can have much more complicated ones. You can have AB2, you can have A2B3 and so on and so forth. So, the moment you have more than one atoms, you need to look at the repeatable unit cell very carefully, so as to ensure that at least one formula unit lies within the unit cell. So, how many formula units are there in one unit cell? You have one formula unit in the unit cell. You can see that there is one of A and one of B. You can have more than one as well, and we will see that later on, but at least one must be there. Okay, for a, that is the bare minimum requirement. Now, so based on this, let me now provide a definition to this. So, you have a lattice like this. I will just draw a few of them. Okay. So, when I said I have one atom of this, this is one, this is one, this is one, this is one. If I have this of same kind, then I draw a unit cell. This is a repeatable unit cell. This unit cell is the smallest unit cell, and how many A atoms it consists of? It consists of only one atom. So, this is called as a primitive unit cell. Now, if I can draw a bigger unit cell which is also repeatable in space like this, right. How many atoms does it have? It has 2 atoms. So, this is called as non-primitive unit cell of, in this case, second order. Okay. You can go higher and higher. Things are simple when you have just one atom. Things become a little complicated when you have more than one atom. So, I gave you one example last time. So, if you take the example of more than one atoms, now of course, you can have some more correlations here. You can see that non-primitive unit cell, the next order non-primitive unit cell contains twice the number of atoms as the primitive unit cell contains. The area or the volume of non-primitive unit cell is number of atoms multiplied by the area or volume of the primitive unit cell. So, you can see that here V and P will be equal to twice of Vp, all right. So, I can give you a little bit more difficult example. Okay. Now, let me say my motif is not a single atom, but it is a group of atom. Okay. So, let me just draw these little ones here. Okay. Now, first example I take is I draw this little green dot here. Okay. This is same as before. It again has a primitive unit cell which is like this. So, this is the primitive unit cell, and it contains now one molecule of AB, okay, because this is A and this is B. Again you can draw the non-primitive one, this is the non-primitive one, and this will contain 2 of AB. Now, let us make things slightly more tricky with this. What I do is that I again draw a smaller simple lattice. Okay. And I put the green atom 1 here, okay, 1 there, 1 here, okay, and then 1 here, 1 there, 1 there, 1 here, 1 there, and 1 here. So, which is the repeatable unit cell now? Is this the repeatable unit cell? Yes, this is not, right. What about this? So, this is not. Sorry about the straightness, it is not very straight here. What about this? It is. So, now this is the smallest unit cell. So, this is the smallest unit cell, which means this is the primitive lattice. So, this is the primitive lattice, but it has 2 formula units of AB, not just one. So, primitive unit cell does not necessarily have to contain one formula unit in the case of molecules. Okay. It can contain more than one formula unit. It depends upon the relative orientation of molecules with respect to each other, and then you have to figure out which is the smallest repeatable unit cell. All right. So, again you can make it a little bit more complicated. There are several examples of that. So, these are certain illustrations that you can do away with. Now, let me give you a few examples of these primitive and non-primitive lattice in a little quick manner. So, we are talking about the primitive and non-primitive lattice. So, basically we said that the motif for basis is an atom or a group of atoms which is associated with each lattice point, and I gave you demonstration of when you put when the atom is replaced by a molecule, the things could be quite different. The definition of primitive and non-primitive unit cell does not remain the same. So, basically, we said that you can have a square lattice like what you see on the left. This is the square lattice, and then this could be a motif, or this could be a motif, or this could be a motif. So, this is much more complicated motif where you have 3 atoms instead of having just 2 atoms. Motif does not need to be a very symmetric object, it can be a symmetric object. For example, it can be something like that. You can have a pattern like this trolley, and when you combine this periodic lattice with a trolley like that, then you get a lattice of trolley. So, this is sort of a trolley lattice. The only condition is that all these atoms or group of atoms or objects should be arranged in such a manner, so they make a periodic lattice, so that there is a distinctness about the neighborhood of each of the lattice point that you see. So, for example, this is a lattice which Professor Rajesh Prasad from IIT Delhi gave me. So, you can have this periodic arrangement of hearts. Okay. Now, this periodic arrangement of hearts is like he used to call it a love pattern, and so this is like a lattice. If you replace each of the point by a heart, it becomes a love pattern, something like that. You can have a monkey pattern, you can have a dog pattern, provided all the dogs or monkeys are arranged in such a fashion so that you make a periodic one. So, this is the illustration of how you can have a primitive lattice with different arrangement of. Now, you can see that each of the heart is arranged in such a fashion so that each alternative heart is in same orientation. So, as a result, what you have is, when you now represent it using the lattice, now the motif is this. So, as a result, the periodic lattice does not remain the same as what you had earlier, you need to define it differently. So, I will show you how you do that now. So, this is, for example, the set of dogs who are standing. You can make a periodic lattice like this, and this is the unit cell that you draw, the green one. So, this one or that one, these are all primitive unit cells. However, in this image on the right now, what I have done is I have changed the orientation of each alternating animal. So, for example, these let me just change the color of the pointer, let me just bring to arrow. So, this dog is standing up, this is standing up, this is standing up, and every alternate one is standing upside down. So here now if you want to draw a periodic lattice, this periodic lattice or that periodic lattice on the left cannot be the periodic lattice here. So now here when you want to now make a lattice, lattice is bigger, which contains one upside standing animal and one downside facing animal. So basically the formula unit in the previous case is this animal, one animal. In this case the formula unit is a group of two animals, one is standing up, one is standing down. This is what happens with atoms. So you can consider the animal which is standing up like one type of atom, and the animal which is standing upside down is another type of atom. Okay. So basically what you have to do is that you have to replace the point in each point lattice with the motif or basis, and in case of crystal structures we do that with atoms or group of atoms or molecules. So this is for example a very famous picture by M.C. Escher which depicts air, water and earth. So you can see that there are three kinds of species here. There is fish, there is bat, and what you have is a lizard, right. So these three animals represent the three constituents of universe: air, water and earth. Now in this pattern, can you find out the primitive lattice first of all? So I put one point here, the first one, the one in the green here, can you see that? And then I put the green points all over the place. So you can see that there is certain periodicity with it. Each green point has these three inward looking fishes, three bats, and there are three lizards which are not visible. So what you can do is that you can move this point somewhere else. So basically you can say that every periodic pattern, as a result a crystal, has a unique lattice associated with it. So when you now make a lattice out of it, if you go to the previous one, this was the previous scenario. So what is the lattice in this case? The lattice would be, if you come from here, let me now draw it for you. Yes. So this, and this. Okay. However, as I said that the point of lattice does not need to be there. So what is the motif in this case now? Can you determine what is the motif? The motif is, how many bats does it contain? 3 bats. How many lizards do you have? 3. And how many fishes you have? You have 3 fishes, right? There are some which are being cut here, but there are some which are entering from here. So overall they make up 3 fishes. So overall within one unit cell you have 3 fishes, 3 lizards and 3 bats. This is the motif in this case. You can consider each lizard is one atom, each bat is one atom, and each, so it could be just A, B, C, 3 atoms. So each lattice now has 3 atoms, A, B and C, and 3 of them, not just one of them, 3 of them. Why 3 of them? Because all 3 of them are differently oriented with respect to each other. So as a result each has 3 of each species in the primitive lattice. So you can move this lattice wherever you want, and still it remains a periodic lattice. I can put the center here and it still remains the same. If I now draw the lattice would be this, so it does not matter where you put the unit cell corner, it still contains 3 of A, 3 of B and 3 of C, or 3 fishes, 3 bats and 3 lizards. So this is just an illustration of what the lattice could be. So this is kind of, if I remove the pattern from there, this is how it will look like. So I was talking about primitive and non-primitive unit cell. So basically this is what is the definition of primitive unit cell. Primitive unit cell consists of one lattice point. Technically speaking, each atom in this case each animal is a lattice point. Okay. However, and for each of them the lattice point is identical. Okay. On the other hand, if you look at the non-primitive unit cell, for example, this is the non-primitive unit cell. So let me just go to the pointer. So this will be the non-primitive unit cell. It consists of 2 lattice points. Here in this case again, primitive unit cell consists of 1 lattice point. However, 1 lattice point is now consisting of 2 atoms, A and B, or 2 animals, upside down and downside up. And the non-primitive one will consist of 4 animals, 2 upside and 2 downside. That is the difference between the primitive and non-primitive unit cells. So volume of a non-primitive unit cell, as I said, will be equal to number of motif or number of lattice points multiplied by the volume of the primitive unit cell. Actually, number of lattice points is more precise definitions, because lattice point can be 1 atom, it could be group of atoms, all right. So this is what the definition of lattice can be summarized as. You can have variety of primitive lattices in a periodic pattern. So this is a primitive lattice, this is a primitive lattice, this is a primitive lattice. So you can see that in the first 2 cases you have chosen to keep the corner of the unit cell at the lattice points themselves, but it does not matter. You can keep the corner of the unit cell anywhere within the pattern, as long as you have one lattice point within the unit cell. Here the lattice points are shared, here you have 1 lattice point within the unit cell. This is a non-primitive unit cell, this is again a non-primitive unit cell. You can make the non-primitive unit cell, likewise you make different possible options of primitive unit cells, you can make several options of non-primitive unit cells as well. So this is, if you just to summary, so this becomes a crystal structure in this case, if you replace the point by a motif. So so these are some patterns which are provided to you. You can choose these. If you go online and just Google Escher patterns, okay, and there are a variety of Escher patterns which are available, not necessarily these, but you can choose any periodic patterns and try to draw the primitive unit cells and non-primitive unit cells and compare their areas, compare the lattice points, what is the lattice point made of, determine the motif in each of these cases. Okay. So these are just 2 examples which I am giving here, but you can take them, you can just Google for Escher patterns itself. All right. So this takes us to the end of this particular point, which will bring us to next lecture. So let me now summarize at this point. You have a point lattice, and when you replace points in the point lattice by atoms or group of atoms or molecules, you make a crystal structure. Now depending upon, you can associate, in case of 1 atom it's easy. In case of 1 atom, each unit cell will, each smallest unit cell will consist of 1 atom, and it will be called as a primitive unit cell. And we call each of the point in the point lattice as a lattice point. So in this case the lattice point is associated with 1 atom. The things will change when you replace 1 atom by multiple atoms, multiple different types of atoms or different molecules. That is where the relative orientation of relative position of atoms with respect to each other will determine what kind of primitive lattice will you have, and how many lattice points, how many atoms or molecules will be associated with 1 lattice point. It is possible that 1 lattice point may contain 1 molecule, but it is also possible that 1 lattice point may contain more than 1, 2 or more than even 2 or 3 number of molecules. There are several examples of that. So essentially it will be governed by relative positioning of molecules with respect to each other, provided they make a periodic pattern. That is the ultimate takeaway. Okay, so now we'll pause here and we'll now go to the next lecture, which is on unit cells and crystal structures.